Hello and welcome to Freedom Watch, a daily dose of raw liberty, streaming online at foxnews.com. I'm your host, Judge Andrew Napolitano, here defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. President Barack Obama makes his debut at the United Nations on Tuesday of this week. He will deliver remarks at the Climate Change Summit. He'll host a working lunch with African heads of state, deliver remarks at the Clinton Global Initiative, but most importantly, President Obama will meet with Chinese President Hu Jintao. At the top of their agenda is trade, but experts suggest a looming trade war between the two powers is imminent. Here to talk about all this is Dan Griswold, director of the Center for Trade Policy at the Cato Institute. Dan, welcome to Freedom Watch.
Judge, glad to join you.
Thank you. So the president puts a tariff on automobile tires, and the Chinese put a tariff on chicken. Where is this taking us? And did they learn the lesson of, I think it was 1929, when something called Smoot-Hawley came by, and Herbert Hoover put a tariff on almost everything?
Yes, we seem to be forgetting the lessons of the past. I don't think we'll go that far down the road, but this is taking us definitely in the wrong direction. You know, the timing of this couldn't be worse. The president's going into the G20 meeting. He's telling the rest of the world to keep their trade barriers down and resist protectionism so the U.S. can export to the rest of the world. And here he sets a terrible example. And yes, the Chinese are talking about retaliating against U.S. meat and poultry exports. You know, American farmers sold $1 billion worth of meat and poultry in the Chinese market last year, a tenfold increase from 5 years ago. We're going to be big losers if the Chinese decide to retaliate, but that's one of the dangers when you start raising trade barriers for no reason.
What does the president think he is accomplishing economically by imposing a tariff on tires? My guess is he's trying to accomplish something politically, which is the illusion that putting tariffs on any kind of an import that is also made domestically will help the domestic market. But economically, in the long run, for the average consumer, the cost of this will be to increase the price of tires and thus make them more expensive.
Yeah. Judge, you're exactly right. Unfortunately, this was a purely political decision. It was basically appeasing one labor union, the United Steelworkers, that represent some rubber workers. This isn't going to do a thing for jobs in the United States or the economic recovery. You know, it's just not economical to make these tires in the United States anymore. If we don't import them from China, they'll come from Indonesia or Brazil or Venezuela. This is why the tire manufacturers themselves didn't support this tariff. And Judge, you're exactly right. Consumers are going to pay the price.
What is the free market argument, Dan, to the president when he says, or I have to be honest and fair, I haven't heard him say it, but I've heard his supporters say it, China's stealing jobs?
Yeah, well, this isn't about jobs. Most of the stuff we import from China are things we haven't really made in this country in great amounts for decades. You know, T-shirts and shoes. China is the end assembly point in a global supply chain. If we don't import these things from China, they're going to come from other countries. And what the imports from China do is they allow low-income Americans to achieve a higher standard of living because their products are more affordable. You know, these tires, the tariffs on tires, this will affect 1 out of 6 tires sold in the U.S. They're the lower-end tires, Judge. They're the kind of tires that working families, low-income people buy to put on their cars. This tariff is going to raise those prices by 20 or 30%. It's going to make it harder for struggling working-class families to drive safely. They're going to put off buying new tires. That's all that the president has accomplished.
So the president thinks he will help a class of people politically, people who are members of labor unions that manufacture these things, whereas in reality, he will hurt a class of people economically, the lower middle class and the poor who can least afford to have to pay more to put a tire on their cars.
Yes, but the labor unions are organized politically. They helped get Obama into office. who's out there sort of speaking, besides the Cato Institute and Judge Napolitano, who's out there speaking for the working class people who are going to get socked with higher prices? They just don't seem to have a voice in this administration.
Has China recently filed an appeal of an issue between the United States and China involving the import or export, I'm not sure which it is, of entertainment products, of media products with the WTO?
Yeah, the United States filed a case against China that the Chinese were not sufficiently protecting and allowing U.S. Movies and CDs to be sold in China. And the U.S. won that case. This is a big reason why it's good that China is part of the WTO. We can handle these disputes under the rule of law in a responsible way. The Chinese lost. I think they're appealing it. I don't think they're going to win the appeal. The bottom line is, because of China's membership in the WTO, it's going to be easier for U.S. Movie and music companies to sell their products in China and being protected by the copyright laws.